Welcome to our deep dive today. We're going to be unpacking something pretty interesting about the Christmas story.
Okay.
It has to do with why shepherds were the first to celebrate the birth of Jesus.
Interesting.
It's kind of strange when you think about it,
Yeah.
right? Especially back then. Shepherds were far from the VIP list.
Right.
So we're going to be using a devotional called 12 Days of God's Character, the Christmas Story, to help us explore this.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what was so special about shepherds? I mean, this wasn't just about them being poor.
Right.
The devotional even points out
Okay.
their testimony wasn't considered valid
Oh, wow.
in court.
Interesting.
It seems like their whole way of life was seen as,
Yeah.
well,
Untrustworthy.
untrustworthy, yeah.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
I never thought about it that way.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just about
Right.
economic status,
Well, there's like a
whole social stigma.
a whole social stigma.
So for them to be the first to get the news about Jesus,
Right.
that's definitely a
Right.
deliberate
It's
choice.
a deliberate choice for sure.
Yeah.
And it connects to this bigger idea
Okay.
that the devotional highlights, which is God's preference for what's called the poor in spirit. Not just literally poor, but those who maybe don't have a lot of worldly status or power.
So it's almost like God intentionally flipped the script.
Absolutely.
Instead of going to emperors or high priests,
Right.
he goes to these guys who were basically
Outcasts.
outcasts. Yeah.
Pretty radical statement when you think about it.
Yeah.
Especially in the context of first century Judea.
Right.
You know, their society was all about
Yeah.
who had power and who didn't.
And the devotional actually links this
Okay.
to something that Jesus himself said later.
Okay.
Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of God.
Yes.
That's from the Sermon on the Mount.
The Sermon on the Mount. Yes.
Right.
It's fascinating how that idea is woven into the very beginning of Jesus' story,
Yeah.
long before he even started his ministry.
Okay, but I'm curious.
Yeah.
What exactly does poor in spirit mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of a vague term, isn't it?
It's a little tricky to pin down,
Right.
but I think the core idea is humility.
Oh.
Recognizing that
Right.
we're not the center of the universe.
Right.
It's about being open to something bigger than ourselves,
Okay.
which ties back to the shepherds
Yeah.
and their willingness to receive this incredible message.
So it's not about putting ourselves first,
Right.
but being open to God's plan,
Yeah.
even if it comes in an unexpected way.
Absolutely.
Like through some shepherds in the middle of the night.
Right. And the devotional emphasizes this point
Okay.
about God establishing a right side up kingdom.
Okay.
It's not that Jesus came to just flip the social order
Gotcha.
and make the poor suddenly powerful.
So it's more like he came to create a whole new kind of order.
Exactly.
Well, what really matters is your heart
Yeah.
and your connection to God,
Right.
not your social status or how much money you have.
It challenges us to rethink our priorities.
That's pretty revolutionary even today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What we value in life. Does outward success matter more than inner transformation?
Wow.
Are we building our lives on things that will ultimately fade away or on something that has eternal significance?
Those are some deep questions.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see why
Yeah.
this seemingly simple detail about the shepherds is actually so profound.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it speaks to a very human experience.
Okay.
That feeling of being small or insignificant.
Yeah.
You know, the devotional talks about how we all have moments where we feel like we don't measure up,
Right.
like we're not enough.
We've all been there, right?
Absolutely.
Especially with all the pressure
Yeah.
to be successful
Yeah.
and amazing all the time.
Exactly.
Right.
But the shepherd's story reminds us
Yeah.
that even when we feel that way,
Yeah.
God sees us. He values us not for what we achieve,
Right.
but for who we are at our core.
It's a really comforting thought.
Yeah.
Especially during this time of year
Yeah.
when things can get so hectic
Right.
and overwhelming.
Yeah.
Just remembering that even those humble shepherds
Yeah.
were chosen
They're
for
chosen.
something incredible.
It gives us hope that God can work through anyone, regardless of their background or their perceived importance in society.
I'm curious,
Yeah.
what does this choice of shepherds say to the people who weren't chosen first?
Right.
Like the religious leaders or the wealthy elites?
Right.
What message?
It's a subtle but powerful challenge,
Okay.
I think, to examine their hearts
Okay.
and their values
Yeah.
Are they so caught up in their own importance that they're missing the true message of God's love and grace?
That's such a good point.
Yeah.
It flips the whole script on its head. Suddenly, the people at the bottom of the ladder become the ones with the most important message to share.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that God doesn't operate according to our human hierarchies and expectations. He works in mysterious and often surprising ways.
This is getting really interesting.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see
Yeah.
how much more there is to this story than meets the eye.
It's a reminder that even the most familiar stories can hold hidden depths and unexpected insights.
Before we continue exploring this, I want you, the listener, to think about this.
Yeah.
The shepherds were considered outcasts in their society.
Yeah.
Have you ever felt like an outsider? Like you didn't belong or weren't good enough?
Yeah.
Maybe you've been overlooked or underestimated because of your background, your beliefs, or simply who you are.
Yeah.
If so, I want to encourage you to remember the shepherds.
Remember the shepherd.
Remember that God sees you.
He does.
Values you.
Yes.
And has a purpose for you.
That's right.
Even when you feel small or insignificant. We're going to keep digging deeper into why shepherds of all people were chosen to be the first to celebrate Jesus' birth. You know, just hit me that this choice is incredibly subversive. It's like God was turning societal norms upside down.
The devotional doesn't explicitly say it, but the contrast is definitely there. Shepherds versus the kings, the Pharisees, the whole religious elite.
It's as though God is saying, I'm not playing by your rules of who matters.
Exactly.
And that would have been a huge deal back then.
Yeah, huge.
First century Judea was all about social hierarchies, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Your place in society determined practically everything.
Wow.
Your access to justice. Your economic opportunities. Even how people treated you on a daily basis.
It makes you wonder what the religious leaders of the time thought about all this.
Yeah.
I bet they weren't too happy or being passed over for a bunch of shepherds.
You can imagine the whispers in the synagogues.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's the point, isn't it? God's values are often completely at odds with what the world values.
It forces us to question our own biases.
It does.
Yeah.
Who are we overlooking or dismissing because they don't fit our idea of what's important?
Okay, so we've talked about the social implications. But the devotional also emphasizes this idea of shepherds being awake while everyone else was asleep. I'm curious, what's the deeper meaning there?
Well, think about it, literally. Shepherds were out in the fields at night, guarding their flocks. They had to be vigilant, alert to any danger. It's almost like they were literally ready to receive this message in a way that others weren't.
That's interesting. Do you think there's a connection between that vigilance, that attentiveness, and being open to God's message?
There could be. It's like they were tuned in to a different frequency while everyone else was sleeping. They were paying attention to the sounds of the night, the movement of the stars. Perhaps that kind of awareness made them more receptive to something extraordinary happening.
Like they were already practicing a form of spiritual awareness, even if they didn't realize it.
Precisely. And I think it highlights the importance of stillness and contemplation in our own spiritual lives in a world that's constantly bombarding us with information and distractions.
Yeah, for sure.
It's crucial to create space for silence, to allow ourselves to be receptive to God's voice.
That makes so much sense. It's like we need to cultivate those shepherd moments.
Shepherd moments, I love that.
In our own lives, where we step away from the noise and just listen.
Exactly. It's about being present, paying attention to the subtle whisperings of the divine, even when the world around us is clamoring for our attention.
I'm also struck by the fact that the shepherds were doing something.
Yes.
They weren't just passively waiting around for a miracle to happen. They were actively caring for their flocks, fulfilling their responsibilities.
That's a really important point. It suggests that being open to God's presence isn't about withdrawing from the world or neglecting our duties. It's about being fully engaged in our lives,
Okay.
Bringing a sense of attentiveness and purpose to everything we do.
It's like their work, their everyday tasks became a form of worship in a way.
And it challenges us to consider
Okay.
how we're keeping watch in our own lives.
Okay.
Are we attentive to the needs of those around us? Are we vigilant in our pursuit of justice and righteousness? Are we awake to the ways in which God is working in the world?
Those are some powerful questions.
Yeah.
It really elevates.
It does.
The whole idea of what it means to have faith.
Right.
It's not just about believing.
It's about acting on that belief.
Yeah.
Making it a part of everything we do.
Exactly.
It's about living a life that's both receptive to God's voice and responsive to the needs of others.
So the shepherds, in their humble vigilance, provide a model for what it means to live a life of attentive faith.
Yeah.
And you know what? This whole conversation is making me rethink what Christmas is really about.
Tell me more.
It's like we get so caught up
Yeah.
in the presents and decorations
Oh, no, right?
that we miss the deeper message.
Yeah.
What if the true meaning of Christmas is less about grand celebrations and more about this quiet humility,
Yeah.
this attentiveness that the shepherds embody?
It's an intriguing thought, isn't it?
Yeah.
Maybe the most profound transformation happens not in the midst of the fanfare, but in the stillness of our hearts when we're open to God's presence.
And maybe that's the real gift of the Christmas story, the invitation to awaken to that presence,
Absolutely.
to cultivate that attentiveness, and to live a life that reflects those values, just like the shepherds did.
Beautifully said.
Yeah.
And it makes me wonder
Yeah.
if the shepherds' humble vigilance was so powerful,
Yeah.
what other seemingly small or insignificant acts might have a ripple effect
Yeah.
far beyond what we can imagine.
That's a great question to ponder. It's amazing how this one detail about the shepherds
I know.
has opened up so many layers of meaning
It is.
in the Christmas story, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah.
It's like we often focus on the angels or the star.
Right.
Or even the wise men, but the shepherds, their presence changes everything.
Yeah.
It speaks volumes about who God values and how he operates.
Exactly. And the devotional makes this point
Okay.
about them not just seeing Jesus,
Right.
but then going out and spreading the word.
Yeah.
They didn't keep it to themselves.
That's crucial.
Right.
Imagine the scene, these rough around the edges shepherds bursting into town, telling everyone about the newborn king they've just seen.
It wouldn't have been
Right.
a polished sermon,
No.
but something raw
Yeah.
and powerful.
Raw and powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that.
It's like they couldn't contain their joy, their excitement.
Right.
They had to share this incredible news,
Yeah.
even if people thought they were crazy.
And think about the contrast.
Okay.
The shepherds who are so often dismissed and looked down upon suddenly become the bearers of the most important message in history.
It flips the script on who has authority and whose voices are worth listening to.
Absolutely.
It's like God saying, don't underestimate the power of a transformed heart,
Right.
no matter where it comes from.
And it reminds us that faith isn't meant to be a private affair.
Right.
It's something to be shared,
Yeah.
to be lived out in community,
Okay.
and used to make a difference in the world.
Okay, but let's get practical for a minute.
Okay.
What does that look like for us today?
Yeah.
We're not shepherds running around telling everyone about a baby in a manger.
Right, but the principle is the same.
Okay.
It's about asking ourselves, how am I sharing my faith experiences?
Okay.
Am I letting them shape my actions, my interactions with others?
Right.
Or am I keeping them bottled up inside?
So it's less about preaching from a pulpit
Right.
and more about letting our faith shine through
Yeah.
in how we live our lives, how we treat people,
Yeah.
how we engage with the world around us.
Exactly. It's about being a witness.
Okay.
Not necessarily through words,
Right.
but through our actions, our compassion, our willingness to serve others,
Right.
just like the shepherds did in their own way.
You know, this whole conversation keeps coming back to that idea from the devotional.
Okay.
God seeing the small. It's so easy to feel insignificant
I know.
in a world that's constantly telling us to be bigger, better, faster.
It's a constant struggle, isn't it?
It is.
But the shepherd's story reminds us
Yeah.
that God doesn't measure worth by worldly standards.
Right.
He sees our hearts, our desires,
Right.
our potential, even when we might doubt them ourselves.
It's like a permission slip
Yeah,
to embrace our own smallness
I love that.
and trust that God can work through us,
Yes.
even in the midst of our ordinary, messy lives.
It's a powerful antidote to the pressure to achieve and perform.
Yeah.
It frees us to simply be who we are,
Right.
knowing that in God's eyes, that's enough.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I'm struck by the unexpectedness of the whole Christmas story.
It is.
God choosing shepherds,
Yeah.
a baby born in a stable.
Right.
It's all so unconventional.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
And perhaps that's the point.
Right.
God doesn't operate according to our expectations or our human logic.
Right.
He's constantly surprising us,
Yeah.
working in ways we could never imagine.
So maybe the invitation for us this Christmas season and beyond
Yeah,
is to stay open to those surprises,
absolutely.
to look for God's presence in the unexpected places,
Yeah,
in the ordinary moments, and in the people we might otherwise overlook.
beautifully said.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah.
It's been an incredible journey,
It has.
and I hope it's left you with a renewed sense of wonder and possibility
Yeah.
as we approach this Christmas season.
The pleasure was all mine.
Yeah.
May the message of the shepherds continue to inspire us to live lives of purpose, meaning, and service, not just during the holidays, but every day of the year.